In this episode, we'll be talking about voyages to two very different destinations, Israel and the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. District Attorney Jeff Rosen traveled to the former recently to study how the country handles human trafficking. We'll talk with him to discover his thoughts and attachments to the Holy Land. Assistant District Attorney James Gibbons-Shapiro travels, at least mentally, to the fictional magic private school even more frequently. We'll talk with JGS about his thoughts and attachments to the magical universe of Harry Potter, Ron, and Voldemort as a San Jose-born muggle. Welcome, sir. You've been to Israel 8 times?
Yes.
Including this last work trip?
Correct.
What's your connection there? Why do you go so often?
I like it. I'm not a big traveler, but the first time I went to Israel, I was 21. I graduated from college, and it was the first trip I'd taken outside of the United States. And I had just a fabulous time. I had such a feeling of freedom traveling around the country for a few months with some other people that had just graduated from college. And I just kind of fell in love with the place. A lot of people looked like me. A lot of people looked like Jews I'd never seen before, so that was kind of interesting. There were a lot of pretty girls, and it just was such a feeling of freedom that I enjoyed. I did things there that I never have done before or done since.
Like what?
I hitchhiked around the country, and of course I grew up in the United States, and it was bad to hitchhike, and you shouldn't hitchhike, and it was dangerous. And there, at least at the time, I don't know if it's still this way in Israel, but it just people hitchhiked all over the place. And so I did that. I jumped off cliffs into bodies of water underneath, and it was kind of intoxicating. And so that got me to go back many times over the years.
So you're almost describing like it would be like in Cabo. So so tell us more about Israel, though. I mean, I think some people who haven't been there see it as a war-torn desert country under siege from constant terrorist attacks. It's hardly Walt Disney World, right? So
right.
Is that a misperception? What's it really like in Israel?
Well, my experience every time going is. It's not just Cabo, or I mean, maybe it's Cabo with archaeology. I'm not sure if that's the way to think about it. But in addition to as I say, going there as a young person and having this incredible feeling of freedom, and seeing a lot of pretty sights, both girls as well as more natural beauty. All of the sites of archaeological and historical significance are very interesting to me. So, I read the Bible a lot, and it's very cool to go to a place where, you're reading about, you read where David and Goliath faced off against each other. Okay, well, here's where it was. And, it's in this part of Israel, and this is kind of around the area it would be, or here's where the revolt against the Romans began, and here's that particular place. So just kind of reading and learning about something intellectually, and then actually going to the place and seeing where the events took place is very interesting and kind of brings it back in a stronger way. So I think I've liked that part of it. And, there's different kinds of service activities that I've done growing up in this country, and so in terms of going to Israel and helping out with people that are underprivileged in different ways, that was something I did on a lot of these trips as well. And when you're there, the scale of the place, it's so much smaller than the United States. So in terms of, you talked about the conflict with neighbors and so forth, we're worried here about that North Korea has missiles, and I don't know how many thousands of miles North Korea is away. And of course, we're right to be concerned about that. But in Israel, it's like you look you stand on the Golan Heights, it's like the other side is right there, or Lebanon, or when you're in the south of the country. So there, it's sort of more like, okay, we're in San Jose, and the people that we're really afraid of or concerned about are in Santa Clara, or they're in Campbell. So it's just the scale is much smaller there, but. It's been very interesting. And, this last trip I went for work, which I'd never done before, and so to kind of see professionally how things in Israel were done related to human trafficking, I enjoyed. And, part of me was like, as the DA, I went to Germany a few years ago to visit their prisons, and then I got this opportunity to go to Israel and learn about human trafficking there. I just thought, of all the countries in the world that I might go as the district attorney to learn something about criminal justice, it was kind of ironic that it was Germany and Israel are the two countries.
Wow.
So, and I had very different experiences in both countries, but frankly, very, very positive.
What are Israelis like? I know it's hard to generalize, but are they different culturally than Americans?
Well, the stereotype of Israelis is that they're called sabras, and it's a kind of fruit. It's a desert fruit that's very prickly on the outside, but sweet on the inside. So that's sort of the stereotype.
Sounds like New Englanders, right?
Yeah, that they're kind of in your face and very blunt, but at the same time, very very generous. So it's one example. When I was there years ago with my wife, we'd been married for a couple of years, and we took a vacation there, and I was driving a stick shift car that I hadn't driven before, and at some point I didn't know how to use it, and I couldn't get it to go in reverse. And so a guy, look, I flagged somebody down, like the first person I flagged down comes right over. It's like, wow, that's nice. And then his demeanor was not friendly. It was like, what's the problem? That's what he was saying to me. He was like, what's wrong? And I explained to him, and he was like, ugh, it's just this. That's all you have to do is like this, and it works. And so I did it, and I thanked him. I said, oh, I'm sorry to trouble you. And he's like, it's no trouble. You want to come over for lunch? So I was like, so we went over there for lunch. It was just kind of so I'd say that to me that was a good encapsulation of an Israeli.
Are there other elements of your trips to Israel which have helped you be a district attorney on a more serious note?
Well, certainly the last trip where we were looking specifically at things related to human trafficking, I think did. I felt that we were able to, on the one hand, kind of teach Israelis about some things we were doing. And whenever you have to teach someone about something, you learn it even better yourself. And then we saw their approaches in some areas, which are things that might be helpful to us here. I think what I would say more significant than that is there's very much in Israel like a can-do attitude. So there's all kinds of problems in the country, and the attitude is, okay, well, we need to fix it, and we need to fix it now, and we don't need to we're not going to study it for years and get as much, and we'll just go data and we'll have committees. Like, we're going to just try something down and dirty, and if that works 90%, great. And if it fails, we're going to try something else quickly. So just that kind of that pace of change is something that I've thought about as DA, that on the one hand, yes, I want to be very careful when we roll out new policies and we work on things, we make changes, but I don't want us to get caught in what's sometimes called the paralysis of analysis, that we're just going to analyze something to death and make the perfect the enemy of the good. So in Israel, that's not the approach. It's, we got a problem, let's try to fix it today, and if it doesn't work, we'll try something else. So I think that kind of attitude is something that I've kind of thought about and reached back into as DA.
Maybe you'll have a brown bag entitled "How to Be a Sabra."
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the perfect combination would be like like a Canadian Sabra, because like Canadians are like Americans but nicer. So if you just mixed Sabra with like I'm thinking Melanie Griswold, one of our prosecutors who's Canadian, who's very nice. If you just mixed her extreme, high functioning, get stuff done, but just with that nicer exterior, that would be the perfect prosecutor, I think.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean.
Welcome, James.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So I'll start off with a bang. Is it true that you have a dual secret membership in both Slytherin and Skull and Bones?
It's neither one is true, or it is true, and I wouldn't be able to say. But it's actually that neither one is true.
How did you get into Harry Potter books and movies? Give me sort of a genesis of your generational skip there.
I really would love to say that when I had kids, it was because they were so into the books, and I got into it because they were into it. But I've always been interested in science fiction and fantasy. I was a big Isaac Asimov fan when I was growing up. I was a big Lord of the Rings fan. I can say, I think in this public forum, that when I was in middle school, I did play Dungeons and Dragons. So it really wasn't that big of a leap for me to be reading the Harry Potter books and really loving them.
Have you read them all?
I've read them all more than once, and some of them more than twice.
How about the movies? Have you seen all the movies?
And I've seen all the movies.
Wow. So what's your favorite book?
My favorite book is The Prisoner of Azkaban. For Harry Potter fans, most Harry Potter fans think that the odd-numbered books are better than the even-numbered books. So The Prisoner of Azkaban is number 3, and it's a lot of people, it's their favorite book.
It sounds like there's conspiracy theorists amongst Harry Potter fans. Are you one of them?
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I do think that the books improve with rereading because you see more things in them.
You talked to me about a podcast called Harry Potter and the Sacred Text, which is, I guess, produced by the Harvard Divinity School.
Yeah, there's these 2 divinity school people at Harvard who have this idea that if they take divinity school analysis and apply it to novels, that itself can be interesting and revealing, and that people can have meaning from them. And so they started this podcast to apply their divinity school methods to the Harry Potter books. And part of the idea was that some people, when they are feeling upset, or if they're troubled, or they've got an anxious thing in their life, they've turned to a familiar, comforting book, and they might read that book, and that makes them feel better. And they were thinking, well, it's not the same thing, but it's similar to the idea that you might read a particularly inspiring gospel when you need inspiration. And so they have applied these divinity school methods to the Harry Potter books, and it's a really interesting podcast about religion and morality, and uses the Harry Potter books as really a jumping off point.
So speaking of those parallels, let me make a little bit of a stretch here, but are there any parallels between Downtown College Prep and Hogwarts?
I think that there's not, because the idea of Hogwarts is that you are this super special person that has this magical skill, and you've been discovered to have this magical skill, and therefore you get to go to this special place. And Downtown College Prep is about everyone is magical and has this special skill, and if only we had more magical places that everyone could go to, we'd all be better off as a community, as a society. And so it's a magical place in that it's helping kids who would be the first in their family to go to college to get there, but you don't have to be able to use your wand to fix someone's glasses to be able to get in to Downtown College Prep.
And to explain to our listeners, you were one of the co-founders of Downtown College Prep?
Yeah, I was the first board member for the school, and before there was even a board for the school, and I was the president for the board for Downtown College Prep for a number of years as well.
What magical spell or quality would you love to have as a prosecutor that you've read about or seen in any of the Harry Potter franchise?
Well, it would be both a blessing and a curse to wear an invisibility cloak into the jury room to hear how they're actually deciding the case. So I'd be fascinated to do that, and maybe you don't want to see how the sausage is made.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.